All right, Tony, you are recently retired, but you have not gone too far from the baseball world. I guess once baseball resumes, what can you share with everyone about what you're up to these days?
Oh, man. Recently, even though it feels like forever already, especially with what's going on. But honestly, I got into cross-checking for the Japanese team that I originally played for before I came to Texas, the Yakult Swallows. They reached out and when I had retired, and they had asked if I wanted to come work for them, and I love Japanese baseball, and I was pretty passionate about that, and I think it's a really good opportunity for me to, scout and kind of travel a little bit, look for the next guy that can possibly go over there and be successful. So it's going to be a fun adventure for me.
And you're doing that here in America, right? So, I know we spoke in spring training. You were watching guys in Cactus League games. Will you be going over to Japan at all, or will you strictly be here in America watching American players to see, as you mentioned, whether or not they'd be fits in Japan?
I don't have much Japanese travel in my future as far as I know. I mean, anything can change, but most of my work will be done traveling AAA, big league, those guys that are kind of up and down that area that are usually the better candidates for Japan, guys that just for some reason aren't sticking in the big league level here, that have usually outmatched the AAA level, but for some reason there's just not a spot for them at the big league. Those are, guys depending on availability, how teams monitor, how teams value guys. So I'm learning a lot about who's available to go, and that's also one of the bigger hurdles. Is not just, hey, this guy's good, we like him, he wants to come over. The other element of that is, our team's willing to, part ways with him if they have him, locked up or, on a better term, escaping me right now, under contract or under control. So there's a lot of elements that go into going over to Japan that I'm finding out that I didn't really realize, when I was in AAA going over. So, it's all fairly new, but it's, being on this side of the net watching baseball, it's kind of exciting for me right now.
It's interesting because you're an example of this. Chris Martin, who was recently with the Rangers, now with the Braves, is an example of this. Miles Michaelis left, baseball, part of the major league pipeline. He came back and he's been successful. There are a number of examples. What is it? I've always been curious. Why do guys go over to Japan? Or, perhaps, Korea or some other league, and then come back better prepared for Major League Baseball? I guess maybe you can't speak to everyone, but you can certainly speak to yourself because your Major League career when you returned was that of a guy who was an integral part of the bullpen, whereas before you were just trying to stick.
I was fortunate in my time when I came back to Texas that Colby was still on the team, Colby Lewis. So him and I had some conversations about, because guys would ask, what about there that makes it different that, you come back, and that question always comes up. So Colby and I got to talking, and he always spoke about how you learn, when you learn to throw your off speed. You learn to throw it in every single count. You learn to start with it. You learn to finish with it. You're not, when I was coming through the Diamondbacks organization in the minor leagues, it was all about pitch efficiency, controlling strike zone, throwing, staying in the strike zone where, getting through 7 innings and 100 pitches, 8 innings and 100 pitches. It was all about pitch efficiency at the time. I went to Japan and it turned into, we need to get this out right now every single time. And it's going to take everything you've got. You see the way Yu Darvish pitches in the big leagues. Some people get frustrated with it because he gets deep into counts. But that's kind of a trend in Japan where you're throwing so many breaking balls that you're going to get deep into counts. You'd rather almost allow a walk than you would a hit in most situations. Because even if you're going out of the zone, you still have a chance at getting a strikeout. I mean, I could kind of try to break it down a little bit more, but the fact of the matter is, it's a different game. It's a different mindset, and you have to be able to spot your breaking stuff. And Colby and I talked a lot about it. So when you saw Colby come back, his slider was a deadly weapon for him. He would quick step with it. He would use it in so many situations, and he could throw it for strikes, throw it for balls. he could do what he wanted with it. And I think he picked that up in Japan along with just being able to pitch in front of large crowds a lot of the time. That helps too. You're getting a chance to pitch in big situations a lot. Myself, talking about myself, a lot of that came to be like Colby had just said. I was young. I didn't know what was going on for the most part, and a lot of guys go over thinking they're just going to light the world on fire. But the fact of the matter is, it's a different game. They're a contact-oriented bunch, and they will single you to death. And they did it to me in my first year starting there. And you just kind of pitch. I mean, we could talk about it for hours. I don't want to drag on, but the long story short, breaking stuff matters. And if you can throw that in the zone, if you can control it up and down, and you see Miles Mikolas do it with his breaking stuff, he's so good at it. And and then he follows that up with 94, 95. So I think just being able to control your stuff, being able to throw everything you've got in every single count all the times is something that I picked up and a lot of other guys do as well.
One of the things when I think of people going to Japan, I think of my first years broadcasting in the low levels of minor league baseball, when you've got guys from Latin America who are, 16, 17, 18, 19 years old in a foreign country. They don't speak the language. Not only are they trying to make it in their career where they've got several family members relying on them back home to help provide, but they're also just trying to figure out, like, day to day how to order something from McDonald's and this and that. And so being up close and personal to that, I think I have more of a respect for those guys coming up through the system in a totally foreign land. But I wonder, for someone like you, first of all, how tough was it? How tough was it at first? And then, like, how long did it take you to feel like you were really comfortable, not just in the clubhouse, but when you were out and about, throughout Japan, just being able to live something of a normal life?
Jared, you hit it right on the head with that. I also came back with a much better appreciation for the guys that leave home from a different country, come to America, grind through the minor leagues on the buses and all that stuff that comes with the minor league life, knowing that their family's thousands of miles away or, on a different island or different country. I had a much better appreciation for that after I went to Japan, because it is a lonely and isolating situation. It can be. So for me, it took a while. My first year, I really struggled on and off the field. I think I gained a few extra pounds from too many McDonald's or Subway runs, as opposed to, but out of sheer comfort. But it took me a while to jump with, to finally get in the pool with both feet, just kind of jump into it. And once I did, I found that it was so much easier just to live my life. And I'd kind of put America in the rear view at that point, saying, you know what, forget everything that I thought I knew, throw it out the window. Let's be the dumbest guy in the room everywhere we go right now and just learn how it's done. And by doing that, my wife did it as well, Hillary did it as well, and it ended up being, I've talked to you about it in the past, it was one of the greater experiences of our lifetime. But that isolating feeling of saying I'm on my own for the first time, at 26, I was separated from my family and all that, and it was difficult not having somebody to fall back on. But at some point you got to grow up and you got to just make do with what you got, and you got to try to be successful along the way. And I think a lot of guys that go over there are able to adapt. If you can't adapt to the culture, you can't adapt to the style of baseball. I've seen really good Major League Baseball players go over there and fail, and I've seen really good minor league guys go over there and have stellar careers. So it really is, a roll of the dice for the most part on who's going to be successful and why are they going to be successful.
I got one more question about just the baseball side in Japan. In America or in the major leagues, I don't think necessarily it's done with any malintent, but sometimes in a clubhouse there clicks between the English speakers and those for whom English is not their first language. Just, I think you naturally gravitate to people with whom you can comfortably converse. Now, it's different in Japan because there's a limit on how many non-Japanese players can be on a team, whereas that's not the case for a major league organization at any level. But did you feel like you were embraced as an American that came over? Did you feel like people were threatened by you as an American? What was the, I guess, the social dynamic within a clubhouse like?
Well, a lot of us guys gang over there, foreign guys, we always joke that, like, guys come over and you can tell right away that they've got a hot head. They think that, their way is the right way. They were that guy that should have had a spot in the big leagues but didn't, and kind of got messed around with, up and down and up. He's got that mentality that, it was a personal jab towards him or whatever, and they come over and they think they're going to light the world on fire. We always joked about those guys because you would find them alone and just hating it. And they would hate it and hate it and hate it, and they would fight against it because we're not the first ones to be there. There's a long history of foreign guys that have come before us and a long history of guys with that same mentality that have failed before you. And that's what's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, and expecting a different result. You think that your way is the right way. Well, it's not. The Japanese have been playing baseball for a very long time. You're not going to come over here and reinvent their wheel. So the guys that and one thing about Japanese clubhouse is a lot of these guys were drafted together and they've come up together and they've been in the same organization together because there's not a lot of movement between free agency, up and down. They don't have the option system like we do in the States. A lot of times you see guys that spend a majority of their career, long careers with one team, which is something you just don't really get here anymore. So a lot of these guys, they grow up together. They go through life together. They go through marriages, divorces, funerals, weddings, kids' birthdays. They go all through all that stuff together throughout their entire life. So they know each other very well. So I believe it's a very comfortable setting for them to walk into their clubhouse. And when you're a new guy, they're welcoming you in too. And if you're going to jump in with both feet and show that you care, work hard, and you have a desire to understand what they're trying to get across to you, they're going to welcome you in just like anybody else would. But if you fight against it, if you come in saying you're wrong, I'm right, this is the way we do it, and you just kind of fight against it, guys aren't going to open up to you. Guys aren't going to welcome you in because that's just a battle that nobody wants to take, if that makes sense. Nobody wants to, they want you to come over here and be successful. They want you to go to Japan, be successful. Getting outs matters. Scoring runs matters. In the baseball world, that matters first. And if you can be a good guy along the way, they're going to help you out. They're going to reach out to you. But if you're kind of just a jerk along the way, man, you're going to have troubles and no one's going to be willing to help you because nobody wants to help somebody that's going to be mean or, think they got it all figured out.
It's amazing sometimes how, even professionally, it's just like your day-to-day social life. You're a good person, then, maybe you'll be afforded certain things that you wouldn't otherwise if you decided to treat people poorly.
As a ball player, I talked about this a lot when my dad growing up, my dad would teach me that when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, when they're trying to make a decision between two guys, and if those guys are at similar levels and, they're looking at the board, who are they going to pick? They're going to pick the guy that, if all the, what do you guys call it, measurables? If all the measurables are equal, we're both 83s on Madden, and who are they going to pick? Who are they going to pick? At the end of the day, are they going to pick the guy who's going to possibly give them trouble off the field, or are they going to, pick the guy that they don't have to worry about? The guy that's nice to, be around on a day-to-day basis, a guy that can easily adapt. It's a pretty easy answer there.
All right, I probably could ask you about Japan for another hour, like you mentioned earlier.
Forever, Jared.
Yeah,
but probably, stumble over my words for another few hours about it.
We'll save the rest for another episode later on this summer. I want to ask you about a few other things, including your time with the 2016 Rangers. We'll get to that, but you retired, and some people retire because there's an injury and it's not in the cards. They physically can't do it. Some people just fall out of love with the game, whatever it might be. I mean, you really walked away from the game. I mean, you very well could be playing right now, or I guess not right now, but when the season started somewhere. But you made the very admirable decision that it was time for you to be there with your family on a more regular basis. Could you, for those who are, I guess, unaware of your situation last year being in the Cubs organization, if you wouldn't mind walking us through that, and then also going into why you decided to make the decision that you made, and how tough or maybe even how easy it was when you realized, hey, this is what I think I need to do, and then eventually this is what I'm going to do.
I don't know how admirable the decision really was. It just, like you said, some guys walk away due to injuries, and sometimes the game just, I had a pitching coach that, said there's only a handful of guys that really get to retire from this game. The rest of us, the game just moves on. And I think that to be true. Guys like AB, Adrian, like he deserved everything he got there at the end. He deserved to walk away, and he deserved everything he got. He gets to retire. Derek Jeter, those guys get to retire. The rest of us, we're just kind of holding on to this thing as called baseball, and trying our best and trying to keep it going, moving forward for the next group behind us. And at some point, the game just moves on. But a lot of those things that you said, a lot of them kind of fall into the same pot with me. I wasn't exactly the beacon of health at the time. I was still had a lot of aches and pains. I had hurt, I tore my lat in 18. I was rehabbing from that, and just the process, and I think the mental and a lot of the stress and a lot of the physical activity that I was being tasked to do just wasn't working for me anymore. I just wasn't able to, I wasn't willing to really go through what I needed to go through in order to get up in the 6th and 7th every single night. It got to a point where it just, things were hurting. I was losing sleep. It just wasn't fun at the time. And when it gets to that point, it really is for me, it's time to move on. It's time to, let the next guy play, kind of get out of the way. And that's kind of where I got to. I wasn't having a lot of fun with it. And my kids were growing up. Daughter was starting kindergarten. And at the time, the Cubs had made a business decision, and so did I. Baseball's hard. The business of baseball is even harder, I've found out. And I got to a point in my life, and my family got to a point, we all got to a point in our lives where it was time for us to move on. I had given everything I had. I really didn't have much more to give, and if I did, I really didn't see it ending well for me. So I made a decision at the time. I really don't have any regrets about it. I feel like I'm in the right place, and I mean, in hindsight, I had no idea, but where we're at now, I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad I'm where I'm at in a situation. I mean, it's messy out there right now for everybody involved, minor league, major league, the world. It's messy. So I'm glad I'm at where I'm at right now. Obviously, I didn't have a crystal ball at the time, but in no way, shape, or form do I feel like I made the wrong decision.
And you're also, and I'm thankful that I've gotten the chance to get to know you over the years. And not that there's wrong with the alternative, but you're not someone who ever struck me as a person who was going to let baseball define them every single day of their life. You have interests that go far beyond baseball. Not that you weren't focused on baseball when you were playing, and certainly when I was around you with the Rangers, not to say that, but there are people who, it's again, not that there's anything wrong with this, but they wake up and their life is baseball. They go to the field, they go home, they're watching baseball. That's all they're doing. And if you have conversations with them about anything other than baseball, it's tough for them because part of why they are where they are is that they've had to lock in like that. But you've always been someone who's been able to lock in when you've needed to lock in. But when you go home, I know you love movies. I know you love the outdoors, stuff like that. And I imagine that it's nice for you to be able to do some of those things, I guess, more regularly, and maybe do it with family instead of a buddy of yours in the bullpen or something like that. What are some of the non-baseball things you've been able to do, again, with family or just by yourself that you weren't really able to do while you were playing?
I mean, I'm able to do all the things I can do. I mean, not right now, but before this kind of virus hit. I was able to do because of baseball, because baseball afforded. I mean, baseball's been so good to me and my family ever since I got drafted. It's afforded me opportunities along the way that I wouldn't have had otherwise, I believe. And I've gotten to see places, I've gotten to meet people, I got to play in Arlington, which was fantastic for those 3 seasons. And then, I even got to go to Chicago for a short time and played in Japan and Tokyo. And baseball has afforded me a life now that I'm so thankful for. But like you said, talking about that much baseball, to me, that's exhausting. And maybe I would have been a little bit better along the way had I maybe gotten to baseball a little bit more on my free time. But, it just, that was exhausting for me. And once the world opens up again, I've got a lot of plans outside of baseball. My wife has a lot of plans, and we have a lot of plans as a family. And moving forward, I'm just excited for everything that we can get going because of baseball. Because I worked so hard so long, and baseball afforded me the opportunities that it did. Got to see and meet a lot of new people, and man, I mean, it's just like you said. I like getting outdoors. I like living here in Arizona. It's a perfect place for it. Perfect place for outdoors and things that come along with that, and camping and hiking and fishing and all those good things. So being able to do that with my daughters in my free time and not having to worry about when I'm going to have to strap it in for workouts or play catch and all that stuff, I don't got to worry about that anymore. It's kind of nice. It's kind of relieving.
All right, I want to ask about the 2016 season. This was your first season with the Rangers. I remember the first time I saw you, I was like really intimidated because you had a beard and the long hair, and like you get to know after getting to know you, it's like super nice, almost
softer than a box of kittens.
Yeah, gentle person. But the first time I saw you, you had this like biker, like almost like biker gang type look, like just not the leather jacket or anything, but like the long hair. And I was like, oh man, like I wonder who this guy is. So you joined the team 2016, and that club had the best record in the American League. And I remember one of the things I remember, all the one-run games, all the close games, which I imagine is, I don't know if exciting is the right word, maybe taxing. You can probably fill in one of several words, but for someone in your role pitching out of the bullpen with all these close games, I'm sure that made life interesting. But I'm just curious, first of all, not necessarily specific to that. What do you remember about that year? Your return to America, being on a team as good as that particular club was, and just your ability to not only be there but fit in and produce at a level you produced as one of the most valuable guys in the bullpen that year.
I mean, there really was never a dull moment that season, was there? I mean, I walked into what did I walk in? I walked into a team that was coming off of a couple bad seasons. If I'm correct there, very talented team. I mean, I remember being kind of struck in the locker room when I first got there, and I meet like guys like Derek Holland and Tom Wilhelmsen, and see Beltre's locker and Elvis Andrews, and I'm like, oh, here we go. It's just kind of one of those moments that kind of jarred me. I used to look around the room and see Chu's locker, and see these guys that have been doing it for so long. They've been so good, and I was like, yes, okay. It was a little daunting at first, but what I remember was just another dull moment, and it was just one of those seasons where everybody seemed to step up. It was the year like Bobby Wilson was so integral for us. When guys like Drew Stubbs hitting that walk-off one night, got me a win. I remember, just joking about how many late wins we were getting, and even, all the stuff that happened with Houston that year. I mean, man, there was so much that year. The rain out in New York, that was that year too, I think.
Yeah, where we ended up like finishing the game like 3 a.m. or whatever.
Right. The only people left in the stands were like Prince's and Prince and AB's kids.
Yeah.
It's like 3 a.m. and so I mean, there really wasn't. I mean, the Odor Bautista situation. I walked into a beehive of activity that year, and I just remember it being so much fun down in that bullpen. Guys stepping up, doing different jobs. Just taking the ball and doing the job just about every single night. Big guys coming up, guys that you're not expecting to get big hits, just late inning rallies, 2-out hits, 2-out RBI hits. Big. I mean, it had it all. It was a shame it ended the way that it did. It really was a shame, but man, up until that point, it really was an exciting and fun baseball season. It was probably one of the more fun seasons I've had. I mean, it's a blur. We talk about it now, but once you start rehashing the things that happen, you start tacking them on. You're like, man, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. You're like, what a fun year of baseball that was.
Do you remember? And I don't recall specifics about the game. Like if you had pitched, it was a close game, so I imagine that you had. Maybe you hadn't, and if you hadn't, this would have happened right in front of you. But there's a game against the Tigers later in the year. And Drew Stubbs, who didn't start the game, came in as a defensive replacement and took away a double or extra bases from Ian Kinsler, a ball that was like slicing away from him in right center, right in front of where our bullpen is. And he just made this like tremendous catch. Didn't dive, didn't have to leave his feet, but just like watching it unfold, there was no chance off the bat that ball was going to be caught. You see angles, you're used to seeing things. There was no way. And he just dashed right into the scene and took it away. I think it won the game. I think it was the final out of the game. If that ball was not caught, the Tigers would have taken the lead, I believe. I don't know.
Right,
That's one that also like stands out to me. And you mentioned, like, I know Stubbs hit that walk-off home run, but like everyone did something. Like it didn't matter if you were hitting first or ninth or you weren't even a starter. If you came up in a big spot that year, you were getting the job done. And It was just one of those years where in the regular season it all clicked. And then, unfortunately in the postseason it didn't. But what was the Bautista thing like as a player? Like what was it that game, that day, and then everything that took place afterwards? I guess there's like a degree of that was kind of surreal. Not that brawls don't happen, but this was something that started the year before. The uniqueness of a baseball player actually landing a punch, which never seems to happen, and everything that kind of unfolded. What was it like for you as a player?
That was wild. There's no other way to put it. That was just straight wild. I remember I was kind of warming up in the bullpen. I kind of saw I think, if I remember correctly, I saw the slide, and I was like, okay. And I remember just kind of looking down, and I just see, just the collective reaction of the stadium and the bullpen, after the punch was landed. I can't put into words, but there was a collective reaction within the stadium. And, at that point you look up and you see the bullpen moving, down everyone trying to wiggle down this little stairwell out to this door. It's quite a sight. And then just getting into the scrum right there, right behind Dyson. I know him, he got into it with, I think, Russell Martin. They got into it, and I just remember standing over Sam, hoping that nobody jumped on the back of them. And I actually elbowed Bannister in the head, so that's always nice. There was things going on, tearing people apart, and my left hand slipped off somebody's jersey, and it just you're holding on to something, you let go real quick, and it just jerks. And sure enough, Banny's head was right there, and I just clocked him a good one right there on the side of his right head, and he looked at me and realized it was me, and put the fist back in his pocket. So, so it was wild, man. And I really don't remember much after that, like the aftermath of it all, because I really had nothing to do with it. The questions weren't coming to me, so it was just, for me, it was pretty much business as usual afterwards. Get back to work and go wait for the phone call. So I just remember being in the moment. It was a real wild experience. Because like you said, nobody ever really lands a punch.
And he squared him up for sure. All right, we'll have to do this again later this summer, but I want to leave you with this last question. You can go any direction with it. What is something that you would like to learn, or something that you would like to try?
Something I'd like to learn or I'd like to try. Actually, I want to learn the piano. I've been messing around with it. We have a piano at home, and obviously right now is a great time to try new things. Pick something up that you haven't done in a while, and for me, the piano's one. My wife plays a little bit. She learned when she was growing up, and she plays a little bit, and I want to as well. And then I'd like to get the girls in piano lessons at some point as well. But I'm going to try to teach myself. I don't see it going well, to be honest with you. But so far, I've learned where C major is. I think that's a big deal. So.
That's a start.
So and once you hit it, man, sounds good. That's the major sounds solid. So I'm feeling positive about it.
Well, Tony, we appreciate it. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us today.
Thanks, Jared. I appreciate it, man. Good talking to you.